Commander Jiwan stood on the bridge of her warship, watching the stars through the wide viewport. She was a Vexari, one of the 7 great species that ruled the galaxy. Her scales were dark green, and her eyes could see things that most creatures could not. For 10 years, she had protected the edge of Dominion space, and nothing exciting ever happened here. Today felt different. Her second officer, a young Vexari named Bora, approached with a worried expression. "Commander, we have detected ships entering our space. They are not responding to our signals." Jiwan turned toward the display screen. She saw dozens of ships appearing on the sensors. They were large, angular, and covered in weapons. She had never seen designs like these before. "Send a warning message," Jiwan ordered. "Tell them they are in Dominion territory and must leave immediately." The communications officer sent the message 3 times. No response came back. Instead, the strange ships began moving deeper into Dominion space, heading toward the nearest colony world. Jiwan felt her blood run cold. "Send an alert to the Dominion Council. We may have a problem." The strange ships belonged to the Ashrak Collective, a brutal empire from beyond the known galaxy. They had been conquering worlds for decades, moving slowly but steadily toward Dominion space. Now they had arrived, and they wanted what the Dominion had. Within hours, a message finally came from the lead Ashrak ship. A massive creature appeared on the screen. He had 4 arms, gray skin like stone, and eyes that glowed red. This was Warlord Krethix, the supreme commander of the Ashrak military. "I am Krethix," the creature said in a deep voice. "The Dominion will surrender 3 systems to us. You have 1 day to decide. If you refuse, we will take them by force." The transmission ended before Jiwan could respond. She immediately contacted the Dominion Council, the group of leaders from all 7 species who made decisions for everyone. The council met in emergency session. Jiwan watched the meeting through a secure channel. The 7 leaders argued for hours. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to fight. But none of them really understood what they were facing. The Lumini representative, a being made of living crystal named Elder Kiran, spoke wisely. "We should learn more about these Ashrak before we make any choice. Perhaps they can be reasoned with." But the Krell representative, an insect-like creature with compound eyes, disagreed. "They are invaders. We must show strength or they will see us as weak." The debate continued until the deadline passed. The Ashrak did not wait for an answer. The attack came without warning. Ashrak warships appeared above the colony world of Thessia Prime, home to 6 billion people. Within minutes, they began firing on the planet from orbit. Massive weapons tore through the atmosphere and struck cities below. Thessia Prime had shields and defenses, but they were not enough. Jiwan watched in horror as the planet burned. She ordered her small fleet to move toward Thessia Prime, but she knew they would arrive too late. The Ashrak weapons were far more powerful than anything the Dominion possessed. By the time Jiwan's ships reached the system, Thessia Prime was a dead world. 6 billion lives ended in less than 3 hours. The Ashrak fleet had already moved on to their next target. The Dominion Council declared war, but everyone knew they were unprepared. The Ashrak had better weapons, better ships, and a ruthless willingness to destroy anything in their path. Far from the war, in the great library of the Lumine homeworld, a scholar named Minho worked late into the night. He was fascinated by old stories and ancient history. His favorite subject was the lost species, the creatures called humans who supposedly lived thousands of years ago. Most people thought humans were just stories, myths told to children. But Minho believed they had been real. He spent years searching through old records trying to find proof. The text said that humans came from a region of space called the Dead Zone, a dangerous area filled with radiation and unstable stars. According to legend, humans were warriors unlike any other species. They were creative, aggressive, and incredibly stubborn. They could adapt to any environment and fight in ways that others could not imagine. The stories said that humans had fought a terrible war long ago. Some texts claimed they destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons. Other texts suggested they fought against an unknown enemy and disappeared. Either way, no one had seen a human in 3,000 years. Minho found the legends fascinating because they seemed too detailed to be completely false. The old texts described human technology, their languages, their culture. Someone had known these creatures well enough to write about them in great detail. One night, while the war raged across Dominion space, Minho made a discovery. He was analyzing old communication records when he detected a strange signal. It was hidden in the data, encrypted and almost invisible. The signal came from the dead zone. Minho ran the signal through every translation program he had. Nothing worked. But when he analyzed the mathematical patterns in the signal, he found something amazing. The patterns showed clear signs of intelligence. Someone was transmitting from the dead zone, and they were using mathematics as a universal language. His hands shook as he realized what this might mean. Could humans still exist? Had they been hiding in the dead zone all this time? Minho immediately tried to contact Commander Ji-won. He knew her reputation as someone who listened to unusual ideas. When she finally answered his call, she looked exhausted. The war was not going well. "Commander, I have made a discovery," Minho said quickly. "I have detected a signal from the dead zone. I believe it might be from humans." Ji-won stared at him for a long moment. "Scholar Minho, humans are legends, stories. We are fighting a real war against a real enemy. I do not have time for fairy tales. But Commander, the signal is real. I can prove it. What if humans do exist? What if they could help us?" Ji-won rubbed her eyes. She had lost hundreds of ships in the past few weeks. Thousands of her fellow Vexari had died. The Ashrak seemed unstoppable. Part of her wanted to dismiss Minho's claims as nonsense, but another part of her, the part that had kept her alive through countless battles, told her to pay attention. "Send me your data," Ji-won said finally. "I will look at it when I have time. But do not get your hopes up. Even if humans exist, they abandoned the galaxy long ago. Why would they help us now?" Minho sent the data and continued his research. Every day the war grew worse. The Ashrak captured system after system. The Dominion fleet could not stop them. Millions died. Billions more faced slavery under Ashrak rule. The Council of Seven met again and again, each time more desperate than before. Some members suggested surrender. Others wanted to fight to the last ship. But everyone agreed on one thing. They were losing. Ji-won was promoted to Fleet Admiral after her commander died in battle. She now led what remained of the Dominion military forces. It was not an honor she wanted. She stood on her new flagship and looked at the reports. They had lost 4 major systems. The Ashrak were advancing on 3 more. Late that night, alone in her quarters, Ji-won reviewed Minho's data about the mysterious signal. She had dismissed it before, but now desperation made her reconsider. What if he was right? What if humans were real and still alive? She made a decision that would change everything. "Open a channel to the council," she told her communications officer. "I have a proposal to make." The next morning, Ji-won stood before the Council of Seven. She presented Minho's research and her own analysis of the signal. She proposed sending a ship to the dead zone to investigate. It was a desperate plan, but they were desperate. The council debated for hours. Finally, Elder Kirin spoke. "We have nothing to lose. If there is even a small chance of finding help, we must take it. Fleet Admiral Ji-won, you have permission to take 1 ship into the dead zone, but return quickly. We need every ship we have." Ji-won bowed. She left the council chambers and immediately began preparing for the journey. She chose her best ship, the Ascendant Dawn, and selected a small crew of volunteers. Among them was Minho, who would serve as their guide through ancient records. As they prepared to leave, news arrived of another Ashrak victory. Another world had fallen. Another billion lives were lost or enslaved. Ji-won looked at her crew. They were afraid, but they were also hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, the old legends were true. Maybe humans were still out there waiting in the darkness. The Ascendant Dawn launched from the station and set course for the dead zone. Behind them, the war continued. Ahead of them lay mysteries that had been hidden for 3,000 years. Ji-won stood on the bridge and watched the stars. Somewhere in the darkness, an answer waited. She just hoped they would find it before the Dominion fell. The journey to the dead zone took 5 days. Every hour, Ji-won received reports from the front lines. Every report brought worse news. The Ashrak had captured 2 more systems. The Dominion fleet was in full retreat. Some council members were already discussing terms of surrender. Ji-won tried not to think about it. She focused on the mission ahead. If she let herself dwell on the war, she would lose hope entirely. The crew of the Ascendant Dawn was small but skilled. Besides Ji-won and Minho, there was pilot Hyejin, a young woman from a species called the Antari. The Antari looked almost human, which Minho found fascinating. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and faces that showed emotion clearly. Hyejin was the best pilot in the fleet, able to navigate through dangerous space that would destroy other ships. As they approached the dead zone, the ship's sensors began showing strange readings. Space itself seemed unstable here. Radiation levels were extremely high. Electromagnetic storms flashed across their screens like lightning. "This is why no one comes here," Hyejin said nervously. "These storms can tear a ship apart." Minho studied his ancient records. The old texts say humans built their civilization in the heart of this zone. If they could survive here, they must have had incredible technology. "Or the texts are wrong and humans never existed," Jiwon said, but even she did not sound convinced anymore. They flew deeper into the dead zone. Hyejin's skills were tested every moment. She had to navigate around radiation clouds and avoid electromagnetic pulses that could disable their systems. Twice she had to make emergency course corrections to avoid debris fields that appeared without warning. Then on the 6th day, something impossible happened. "Commander," the sensor officer called out, "I am detecting artificial structures. Multiple satellites, space stations, and what appears to be a defensive grid." Everyone on the bridge fell silent. Jiwon moved to the sensor station and looked at the display. The officer was right. There were structures out there, hidden among the radiation and storms, and they were functional, not ancient ruins. "Someone lives here," Jiwon whispered. Suddenly alarms blared throughout the ship. Weapon systems were locking onto them. Not 1 or 2 weapons, but hundreds. The Ascendant Dawn was surrounded by automated defense platforms that had appeared from nowhere. "Shields up," Jiwon ordered. "Hyejin, do not make any aggressive moves. We are here in peace." Before Hyejin could respond, every system on the ship went dark. The lights, the engines, the weapons, everything stopped working. They were floating helplessly in space, surrounded by unknown weapons. Then a voice spoke through their communication system. It was speaking Dominion Common Tongue, the language used by all 7 species. But the accent was strange, unlike anything Jiwon had heard before. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately or you will be destroyed." Jiwon grabbed the communication panel. "This is Fleet Admiral Jiwon of the Dominion Alliance. We come in peace. We are searching for the species called humans. We need your help." There was a long silence. Then the voice spoke again. "Remain stationary. A patrol ship will escort you to processing. Any attempt to flee or fight will result in immediate destruction." The systems on the Ascendant Dawn came back online, but Jiwon quickly realized they had no real control. Something else was guiding their ship now, moving them deeper into the dead zone. Minho was practically shaking with excitement. They spoke Dominion Common Tongue. "That means they have been watching us. They know about the Dominion. Commander, I think we found them. I think we found humans." Jiwon was not sure if she should feel excited or terrified. These beings, whoever they were, had technology far beyond anything the Dominion possessed. They had disabled the Ascendant Dawn without firing a single shot. They flew for another 2 hours guided by the invisible force. Gradually, the radiation storms cleared and they saw what lay hidden in the heart of the dead zone. A planet. Blue and green and beautiful, covered in oceans and continents. Around it orbited dozens of stations, each one massive and bristling with weapons. Ships moved between the stations, sleek and deadly looking, and beyond the planet they could see more worlds, each one developed and defended. "By the ancestors," Hyejin breathed. "It is an entire civilization." Their ship was guided to one of the orbital stations. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the largest Dominion station. As they approached, a docking bay opened, and they were pulled inside by some kind of tractor beam. The bay door closed behind them. Jiwon ordered everyone to stay calm. "We are guests here whether we like it or not. Everyone will be respectful and peaceful. Is that clear?" The crew nodded. They waited in tense silence as the atmosphere was restored to the docking bay. Then a group of figures emerged from a doorway and walked toward their ship. Jiwon's breath caught in her throat. The figures were bipedal, walking on 2 legs. They wore armor that looked both functional and intimidating. Their faces were visible through clear helmets. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth. They looked remarkably like the Antari, but something about them was different. Their eyes showed more intensity, more calculation. "Humans," Minho whispered. "They are real. They are actually real." One of the armored figures activated a communication device. "Fleet Admiral Jiwon, you and your crew will disembark peacefully. You will be taken to meet Admiral Taejin." He will decide what to do with you. Jiwan stood and straightened her uniform. Understood. We will cooperate fully. The crew of the Ascendant Dawn walked down the ramp into the docking bay. As soon as Jiwan stepped onto the station floor, she felt the difference. The gravity was slightly stronger than what Dominion ships used. The air smelled clean but had an unusual quality to it. The human soldiers surrounded them, weapons ready but not pointed. Jiwan noticed that these humans moved with perfect coordination, like they had trained together for years. Their armor displayed no weak points that she could see. They were led through corridors that were clean and efficient. Everything seemed designed for maximum functionality. The walls displayed screens showing star maps, battle formations, and data that Jiwan could not fully understand. Finally, they reached a large room with windows overlooking the planet below. A man stood there, his back to them, watching the planet. He wore a dark blue uniform with symbols that indicated high rank. When he turned around, Jiwan got her first good look at a human face. Admiral Taejin was not young, but not old either. His hair was dark with some gray at the sides. His eyes were sharp and calculating. He studied each member of Jiwan's crew carefully before speaking. Fleet Admiral Jiwan of the Dominion Alliance, Taejin said in perfect Dominion common tongue. You are very far from home. Explain why you have intruded into human space. Jiwan stepped forward. She decided that honesty was her only option. Admiral Taejin, the Dominion is at war. An enemy called the Ashrak Collective is destroying our worlds. We have lost billions of lives. We are losing the war, and we came here desperately searching for help. Ancient records spoke of humans. We hoped that if you existed, you might aid us. Taejin's expression did not change. The Dominion Alliance, 7 species who have ruled the galaxy for 2,000 years. You never knew we were here watching you. We have observed your wars, your politics, your cultures. We chose not to reveal ourselves. Why? Minho asked suddenly. Why hide for so long? Taejin turned his gaze to the scholar. Because 3,000 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself. We fought a war that almost ended our species. We used weapons that killed billions. When the war finally ended, our survivors made a choice. We would isolate ourselves from the galaxy until we learned to control our own violent nature. We built this barrier, this dead zone, and we waited. We watched other species make the same mistakes we did. We wondered if we would ever be ready to rejoin the galaxy. Jiwan felt a chill run down her spine. And are you ready now? Taejin was silent for a long moment. I do not know. That is for the Earth Council to decide. You will wait here while we contact our government. In the meantime, you will be treated as guests. Quarters will be provided for you and your crew. How long will we wait? Jiwan asked. As long as it takes, Taejin replied. Earth moves slowly on matters like this. We learned that rushing into conflict only brings disaster. We do not have time, Jiwan said urgently. Every day we wait, more people die. The Ashrak will not stop until they have conquered everything. Taejin's eyes hardened. That is unfortunate. But it is not our war. Humanity spent 3,000 years avoiding exactly this kind of entanglement. Give me one good reason why we should abandon that policy now. Jiwan wanted to scream at him. She wanted to grab him and make him understand the urgency, but she forced herself to stay calm. Because isolation is just another form of death. You hide here while the galaxy burns. What makes you different from the Ashrak if you watch evil happen and do nothing? The room fell silent. Taejin stared at Jiwan with an unreadable expression. Finally, he nodded slowly. An interesting argument. We will see what the council thinks. You are dismissed. Human soldiers escorted Jiwan and her crew to quarters. The rooms were comfortable but clearly designed for humans. Everything was slightly the wrong size or shape for the Dominion species. It reminded them constantly that they were outsiders here. Days passed. Jiwan stood in the observation deck of the human carrier ship Indomitable and watched as 30 human warships assembled in formation. She had seen many fleets in her career, but nothing like this. Each ship moved with perfect precision, maintaining exact distances and angles. They did not drift or waver. They simply existed where they were supposed to be, as if space itself held them in position. Admiral Taejin stood beside her. Impressive, are they not? Each ship is crewed by volunteers who believe in this mission. Each one is equipped with technology your Dominion has never seen. They look powerful, Jiwan admitted, but we are still vastly outnumbered. The Ashrak have 300 warships in their main fleet alone. Taejin smiled slightly. Numbers matter less than you think. Watch. He activated a display panel. On the screen, Jiwon saw a simulation. A single human warship faced off against 5 Ashrak vessels. The simulation ran, and within minutes all 5 Ashrak ships were destroyed while the human ship remained undamaged. How is that possible? Jiwon asked. Superior technology, superior tactics, and superior training, Taejin explained. Ashrak ships rely on brute force and overwhelming firepower. They expect their enemies to fight the same way. We do not. Human warfare is about precision, speed, and exploiting weakness. We strike where the enemy does not expect. We move faster than they can respond, and we never fight fair. Jiwon thought about this. The Dominion had always fought honorably, following established rules of warfare. Ship against ship, formation against formation. It had never occurred to her that there might be a different way. A younger human officer approached them. This was Captain Doyen, who had spoken so passionately to the Earth Council. He saluted Taejin and nodded respectfully to Jiwon. Admiral, the fleet is ready to depart. All ships report full combat readiness. Good, Taejin said. Captain Doyen, you will serve as liaison to Fleet Admiral Jiwon's command staff. Help her understand our methods. We succeed only if we work together. Doyen looked at Jiwon carefully. She could see him evaluating her, trying to determine if she could be trusted. Finally, he nodded. It will be my honor, Admiral. The combined human and Dominion fleet departed from the dead zone. Jiwon had sent the Ascendant Dawn ahead days earlier to inform the Dominion Council of Earth's decision. Now she traveled aboard the Indomitable alongside Taejin, learning as much as she could about human warfare. Doyen proved to be an excellent teacher. He showed her how human ships used something called quantum drives, which allowed them to jump across vast distances without using traditional hyperspace lanes. This meant they could appear anywhere, anytime without warning. He explained their weapon systems, railguns that fired projectiles at incredible speeds, faster than anything the Dominion could track, energy beams that could cut through shields like they did not exist, missiles with artificial intelligence that could think and adapt to countermeasures. But most importantly, he taught her about human tactical philosophy. We do not believe in fair fights, Doyen explained. If we fight fair, it means we failed to plan properly. Every battle should be won before the first shot is fired. We study the enemy, find their weakness, and strike there with overwhelming force. The Dominion considers such tactics dishonorable, Jiwon said. Doyen shrugged. Honor does not bring back the dead. Results matter. Survival matters. Everything else is just philosophy. Jiwon found herself both impressed and disturbed by this mindset. Humans were pragmatic to an extreme degree. They had no interest in glory or reputation. They only cared about winning and protecting their people. On the 3rd day of travel, they received a message from the Dominion Council. The Council had been shocked to learn that humans were real, but they had quickly accepted Earth's offer of help. The Council was even more shocked by the terms Jiwon had agreed to, but they had no choice. They were desperate. The message also contained new intelligence about the Ashrak. Warlord Krethix had assembled his main fleet at the Valon system, a captured Dominion world. He was using it as a base to launch further attacks. The Dominion fleet had tried to retake Valon twice and failed both times. Thousands of Dominion ships had been destroyed. Taejin studied the intelligence reports carefully. Valon will be our first target. We will show both the Ashrak and the Dominion what Earth can do. The Dominion tried to retake Valon with 200 ships, Jiwon warned. Both attempts ended in disaster. Are you certain 30 ships will be enough? More than enough, Taejin said confidently. Captain Doyen, begin planning the operation. I want multiple contingencies and backup plans. We will not underestimate the Ashrak, but we will not fear them either. The fleet took up position 3 light-years from the Valon system. Scouts were sent ahead using stealth technology that made them invisible to Ashrak sensors. The scouts returned with detailed information about enemy positions, patrol routes, and defensive capabilities. Doyen presented the battle plan to Jiwon. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. Instead of attacking with the whole fleet at once, humans would strike in waves. The first wave would destroy the Ashrak sensor network. The second wave would attack their command ships. The third wave would eliminate their heavy warships. Each attack would come from a different angle, giving the enemy no time to organize a coherent defense. What about the civilian population on Valon? Jiwon asked. There are still millions of Dominion citizens trapped on the surface. We know, Doyen said. That is why we attack the orbital fleet first. Once we control space around the planet, we can begin evacuation operations. But we cannot help them if we die trying to be too careful. Jiwon did not like it, but she understood. War required hard choices. The attack began at dawn, Veilon time. The first wave of human ships jumped directly into the Ashrak formation, using their quantum drives. They appeared without warning, already firing. Within seconds, every Ashrak sensor satellite was destroyed. The enemy fleet was blind. The second wave appeared 60 seconds later. They targeted the Ashrak command ships, the massive vessels from which Warlord Krethix directed the occupation. Human railguns fired at relativistic speeds, punching through shields and armor like they were paper. 3 command ships were destroyed before the Ashrak even realized they were under attack. The third wave faced more resistance. The Ashrak had finally organized themselves and were returning fire. But human ships were faster and more maneuverable. They danced through the enemy formation, firing from impossible angles, then disappearing before the Ashrak could respond. Jiwon watched from the Indomitable's command center, hardly believing what she was seeing. The battle that should have taken days was nearly over in less than 4 hours. The Ashrak fleet was in complete disarray. Ships were trying to retreat, but human forces had blocked all escape routes. Then something unexpected happened. Warlord Krethix himself appeared on all communication channels. His image showed a being filled with rage and confusion. "What are you?" he demanded. "What species dares to attack the Ashrak with such arrogance?" Admiral Tajin responded personally. His voice was calm and cold. "We are humanity. You have never heard of us because we chose to remain hidden, but you forced our hand by attacking our allies. Surrender now, or we will destroy every ship in your fleet." Krethix laughed, though it sounded forced. 30 ships against 300? You have had luck so far, but numbers will win in the end. Then let us test that theory, Tajin said. What happened next would become legendary in galactic history. The human fleet stopped its careful, tactical approach and demonstrated its true power. Every ship activated its full weapons array simultaneously. The amount of firepower unleashed in that moment exceeded anything the Dominion had ever witnessed. Ashrak ships died by the dozens. Their shields could not stop the human weapons. Their armor could not withstand the human firepower. In desperation, Krethix ordered all his ships to focus fire on a single human vessel, hoping to destroy at least one enemy ship. 50 Ashrak ships targeted the human destroyer, relentless with everything they had. For a moment, the Relentless disappeared in a cloud of explosions and energy blasts. Jiwon felt her heart sink. Surely no ship could survive that much firepower. But when the light faded, the Relentless was still there. Its shields had held. The ship had suffered no significant damage. The Ashrak fleet broke. Ships began trying to flee in every direction. Some made it to hyperspace and escaped. Most did not. By the time the battle ended 6 hours after it began, 200 Ashrak ships had been destroyed. Only 30 escaped. The human fleet suffered no losses and only minor damage to 3 ships. Jiwon could not speak. She had witnessed something that should have been impossible. 30 ships had defeated a force 10 times their size and made it look easy. Tajin turned to her. Now, do you understand why we stayed hidden? Power like this attracts attention. It creates fear. We did not want the galaxy to see us as conquerors or threats. We wanted to live in peace. But you are not conquerors, Jiwon said. You are protectors. The galaxy needs to know about you. Perhaps, Tajin said. But first we must finish this war. Captain Doyen coordinated the evacuation of Veilon's surface. Human dropships descended through the atmosphere and began extracting Dominion civilians from occupied cities. The Ashrak ground forces tried to interfere. The nebula appeared on their sensors like a massive purple cloud in space. It was beautiful and deadly, filled with gas and radiation that made scanning difficult. Somewhere inside that cloud, the Ashrak had built their fortress called the Crucible. Admiral Tajin gathered his commanders for a final briefing before the attack. Jiwon attended via hologram from her own ship, as did the other Dominion captains. Captain Doyen stood beside Tajin, displaying tactical maps and intelligence data. The Crucible is located at the heart of this nebula, Doyen explained. Our scouts have confirmed that Warlord Krethix has assembled over 600 ships there. It is the largest Ashrak fleet ever gathered in one place. They are expecting us, Jiwon studied the display. 600 against our 60 ships. Even with our victory so far, those are not good numbers. No, they are not, Teijin agreed, which is why we will not fight them head-on. Doyen has developed a strategy that uses the nebula itself as a weapon. We will divide our forces into multiple strike groups. Each group will attack from a different vector, using the gas clouds for cover. The Ashrek will not know where the real threat is coming from until it is too late. A Dominion captain named Bora spoke up. What if they simply destroy the entire nebula with their weapons? Remove our cover completely? They could try, Doyen said. But the energy required would disable their own shields for several minutes. We will exploit that vulnerability immediately. Either way, we force them into a mistake. The plan was complex and risky. It required perfect timing and coordination. But Jiwan had learned to trust human tactics. They had not failed yet. The fleet split into 5 groups. Teijin would lead the main force directly at the Crucible's front. Jiwan would command a mixed human Dominion group attacking from the left flank. Doyen would take a smaller, faster group to strike at the Ashrak supply lines. 2 other groups would position themselves for ambush opportunities. As they entered the nebula, visibility dropped to almost nothing. The purple gas interfered with most sensors. Human ships compensated with advanced scanning technology, but even they had limited range. The Dominion ships had to rely on their human allies to guide them through the murk. Hyejin piloted her ship with incredible skill, following the course corrections that Jiho transmitted to her. The human engineer had become something more than just a colleague to her. They had spent many hours talking about their different cultures, finding common ground despite coming from different worlds. Stay close to us. Jiho's voice came through her communications. There are debris fields ahead. Very dangerous if you hit them at speed. I see them, Hyejin replied, her hands moving precisely over the controls. I am not going to crash, Jiho. I have been flying since before you were born. That is probably true, Jiho admitted. Your species lives much longer than humans. But please be careful anyway. Their conversation was interrupted by Admiral Teijin's voice. All units prepare for combat. We are approaching the Crucible's outer defense perimeter. Weapons free on my mark. Jiwan felt her pulses quicken. This was it. The decisive battle. She looked around her bridge at her crew. They were afraid, but they were also determined. They had seen what humans could do. They believed victory was possible. The Crucible appeared through the nebula like a mountain emerging from fog. It was massive, easily 50 kilometers across. Its surface was covered in weapons platforms, shield generators, and docking bays. Around it floated hundreds of Ashrak warships arranged in defensive formations. All ships, Mark, Teijin commanded. The first salvo from the human fleet lit up the nebula. Railgun rounds crossed the distance at near light speed. Energy beams carved through the purple gas. Missiles with AI guidance systems weaved through defensive fire to strike their targets. The Ashrak returned fire immediately. The space around the Crucible became a storm of weapons fire, explosions, and electromagnetic pulses. Ships on both sides maneuvered frantically, trying to gain advantage while avoiding destruction. Jiwan's group emerged from the nebula on the Crucible's left flank, exactly as planned. They caught a cluster of Ashrak ships by surprise. The Dominion vessels focused fire on enemy shields while human ships struck with precision weapons. Within minutes, 20 Ashrak ships were destroyed, but the Ashrak were not helpless. They had been preparing for this battle, and they had learned from their previous defeats. They began using tactics specifically designed to counter human advantages. Instead of fighting ship to ship, they formed tight clusters and used overlapping shields. This made them harder to separate and destroy individually. Warlord Krethix's voice boomed across all communication channels. You think you can defeat the Ashrak in our own fortress? You are fools. Even with your superior technology, you are still outnumbered 10 to 1. You will die here, and your deaths will teach the galaxy not to resist us. Admiral Teijin did not respond with words. Instead, he ordered the next phase of his plan. Doyen's strike group, which had been hiding in the nebula's deepest regions, suddenly appeared behind the Ashrak fleet. They attacked the supply ships and support vessels that kept the main fleet operational. Without supplies, the Ashrak ships would run out of missiles, energy for their weapons, and fuel for their engines. Krethix was forced to split his forces, sending ships to protect his supply line. This weakened his main defensive formation, exactly as Teijin had hoped. All groups focus fire on Sector 7. Taejin ordered. We punch through their line there and get direct shots at the crucible itself. The combined fleet concentrated on one section of the Ashrak defense. The intensity of fire was incredible. Dominion ships pushed forward despite taking damage, their shields buckling under enemy fire. Human ships danced around them, taking out enemy vessels that targeted their allies. Jiwon's flagship took several direct hits. Alarms blared as systems failed and hull breaches opened, but she refused to retreat. All power to forward shields. Keep firing. We must break through. Beside her, a Dominion destroyer exploded as its reactor was hit. 200 crew members died instantly. Jiwon felt each loss like a knife in her heart, but she could not stop. Could not slow down. The momentum of the attack had to be maintained. Then disaster struck. An Ashrak dreadnought targeted the human carrier Valiant with every weapon it had. The Valiant's shields collapsed under the barrage. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull. The massive ship began to list, power failing, engines dead. Valiant is down, someone reported. They are requesting immediate support. Taejin made his decision in seconds. Indomitable will cover the Valiant. All other ships continue the attack. We cannot stop now. Taejin's flagship moved between the disabled Valiant and the Ashrak ships, trying to finish it off. The Indomitable's weapons blazed, destroying 2 Ashrak cruisers and driving back several others. But the maneuver left Taejin's ship exposed to fire from multiple directions. Jiwon saw what was happening. Helm, bring us around. We are going to protect the Indomitable. Commander, that will take us out of formation, her second officer protested. We will be isolated. I know, Jiwon said. Do it anyway. Humans came to help us when they had no obligation. Now we return that favor. Her ship accelerated toward Taejin's position. Several other Dominion vessels followed her lead. Together they formed a protective screen around both the Indomitable and the disabled Valiant. The Ashrak focused their fire on this new formation, and the Dominion ships absorbed terrible damage. Jiwon's flagship shook violently as weapons struck its hull. Fires broke out on multiple decks. The medical bay reported dozens of casualties. But they held their position, shields at maximum, weapons firing constantly. Admiral Taejin opened a direct channel to Jiwon. Fleet Admiral, you did not need to do this. Your mission is to break through the enemy line. Our mission is to win this battle together, Jiwon replied. That means we protect each other. This is what allies do. Taejin was silent for a moment. Thank you. We will not forget this. While the Ashrak were distracted by the fighting around the damaged human carrier, Doyen's strike group completed their mission. They had destroyed every Ashrak supply ship and support vessel. Now they moved to their final objective, the Crucible's main power reactor. Doyen led a squadron of 12 fighters directly toward the fortress station. Defensive weapons filled the space around them with fire. 2 fighters were destroyed immediately. 3 more took damage and had to retreat. But Doyen and 6 others made it through. They fired specialized missiles at the reactor's protective housing. The missiles were designed to burrow through armor before detonating. All 6 missiles found their target. The resulting explosion was catastrophic. The Crucible's shields failed completely. Secondary explosions rippled through the massive station. Thousands of Ashrak soldiers died as sections of the fortress decompressed or were consumed by fire. The station began to break apart, huge pieces of debris spinning away into the nebula. Crucible is destroyed, Doyen reported. Warlord Krethix was on board, confirming that his life signs have terminated. The Ashrak fleet's response to their commander's death was immediate and disorganized. Some ships tried to flee. Others fought more desperately, knowing they had nothing left to lose. A few tried to surrender, but their pleas were drowned out by the chaos of battle. Admiral Taejin gave the order to finish it. 6 months had passed since the Battle of the Crucible. The galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. Humanity was no longer a legend whispered in dark corners. They were real, powerful, and actively engaged in galactic affairs. The Galactic Accord for Peace and Protection had grown rapidly. What started as an agreement between Earth and the Dominion now included 15 species. Each one had joined voluntarily, attracted by the promise of protection and fair treatment. The Accord's headquarters was established on a neutral station called Unity, built jointly by human and Dominion engineers. G1 walked through the corridors of Unity Station, still getting used to her role as Accord Marshal. The station was always busy, filled with beings from dozens of different species. They spoke different languages, had different customs, and came from wildly different worlds. But they all shared one goal: building a galaxy where everyone could live in peace. She entered the command center where Captain Doyen was coordinating patrol routes with several other officers. Doyen had proven to be an excellent deputy, understanding both human tactical thinking and the diplomatic sensitivities of working with multiple species. Marshal Jiwon, Doyun greeted her formally when she entered. "We have received requests for accord assistance from 3 more systems. All of them report pirate activity that local forces cannot handle." "Pirates?" Jiwon asked. "Not organized military forces?" "Correct. It seems that the Ashrak's defeat created a power vacuum in some regions. Various criminal groups are trying to exploit the instability. Nothing we cannot handle, but it shows that our work is far from over." Jiwon nodded. "Assign patrol groups to investigate each situation. But make sure every group includes ships from at least 2 different species. We need to show that the Accord is truly unified." This had become standard practice. Mixed species crews and patrol groups helped build trust and understanding between different civilizations. Humans worked alongside Vexari, Lumini served with Antari, and Krell learned to coordinate with former Dominion rivals. Admiral Taejin entered the command center, carrying a data tablet. He looked concerned, which was unusual for him. Taejin rarely showed emotion openly. "We need to talk," he said to Jiwon. "Somewhere private." They moved to a secure conference room. Once inside, Taejin activated a privacy field that would prevent anyone from listening to their conversation. "What is wrong?" Jiwon asked. Taejin displayed an image on the room's main screen. It showed a strange signal pattern, clearly artificial, but in a format that human computers could not fully decode. This transmission was detected by one of our deep space monitoring stations. It came from beyond the galactic rim, from a region that we have no charts for. The signal is ancient, possibly thousands of years old, but it was only recently activated. Jiwon studied the pattern. "Do you know what it says?" "Parts of it," Taejin admitted. "Our best analysts have been working on it for weeks. What they have decoded is concerning. The signal appears to be a warning beacon, alerting someone or something that conditions have changed in this galaxy." "What conditions?" "The presence of active spacefaring civilizations," Taejin said quietly. "Specifically, the signal seems to have been triggered by our quantum drive signatures. Humanity's return to the galaxy has activated something that was dormant." Jiwon felt a chill run through her body. "You think this is related to the enemy that drove humanity into isolation 3,000 years ago?" "I do not know," Taejin said honestly. "The historical records from that time are incomplete. We know there was a terrible war, and we know humanity chose isolation rather than risk another such conflict. But the specific details of who we fought and why have been lost to time. What do you want to do?" Taejin was silent for a long moment. "For now, nothing. We keep monitoring and analyzing the signal. We quietly prepare our defenses. But we do not cause panic by telling everyone about a threat that may not even exist anymore. 3,000 years is a very long time. Whatever sent that signal might be long dead." "But you do not believe that," Jiwon observed. "No," Taejin admitted. "I do not. Humanity did not hide for 3,000 years because of a dead enemy. We hid because we feared what would happen if that enemy found us again. Now we have revealed ourselves. We must be ready for the consequences." They agreed to keep the signal classified for now, shared only with the highest levels of Accord leadership. There was too much to do in building the new galactic order to worry about ancient threats that might never materialize. Jiwon returned to her regular duties, but the conversation with Taejin stayed in her mind. She found herself looking at the star maps differently now, wondering what might be lurking in the unexplored regions beyond their borders. Life on Unity Station continued. Minho arrived with a delegation of Lumini scholars who wanted to study in Earth's universities. The exchange of knowledge between species had become one of the Accord's most successful programs. Human scientists were fascinated by Lumini crystalline biology. Lumini researchers were amazed by human computer technology. Hyejin and Jiho had been officially assigned as partners to a new project, designing ships that could be crewed by mixed species teams. Traditional human ships were built for human physiology. Dominion ships were designed for their species. But the Accord needed vessels that anyone could operate comfortably. The project brought them even closer together. They spent long hours discussing designs, arguing about technical specifications and eventually admitting that they had fallen in love. It was unusual for different species to form such relationships, but not unheard of. The Accord celebrated diversity in all its forms. Captain Doyun proved himself repeatedly in operations across the galaxy. When pirates attacked a Krell colony, Doyun led a strike team that rescued the hostages and captured the pirate leadership. When a Lumini merchant vessel was lost in an asteroid field, Doyun coordinated the rescue operation personally. His reputation grew, and many young officers from various species asked to serve under his command. But Doyun remained humble. He remembered the words of his old instructor at Earth Defense Academy. A leader who seeks glory will get his people killed. A leader who seeks results will earn glory whether he wants it or not. 4 months after the mysterious signal was detected, Admiral Tajin called another private meeting. This time he included Doyun and several other trusted officers. Minho was also invited because of his expertise in ancient texts. The signal has changed, Tajin announced. It is no longer just a beacon. It has become active communication. Someone or something is responding to it. He played an audio recording of the new transmission. It was eerie, unlike any language anyone had heard. The sounds were almost musical but carried a sense of threat that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. We believe this is a probe of some kind, Tajin continued. Testing our defenses, measuring our capabilities. Whatever sent that original signal is now trying to understand who we are and how strong we are. Minho spoke up. I have been researching Earth's classified historical archives with Admiral Tajin's permission. I found references to the enemy that humanity fought 3,000 years ago. They were called the Vekor. They were an ancient race older than any current galactic civilization. They saw younger species as threats to be eliminated before they could become competitors. Why did Earth not destroy them completely? Ji-Won asked. Because they could not, Minho explained. The Vekor were too powerful, too widespread. Humanity fought them to a stalemate and then hid, hoping the Vekor would forget about them or move on to other targets. It appears that strategy may have failed. Doyun studied the signal analysis. If the Vekor are still active, why did they not attack the Dominion or other species before now? Why wait for humanity to reveal itself? Because humanity was the only species they considered a real threat, Tajin said. The Dominion, the Ashrak, all the other civilizations in this galaxy are young and relatively weak compared to the Vekor. But humanity developed differently. We evolved through constant conflict, constant adaptation. We became dangerous enough that the Vekor wanted to eliminate us completely. And now they know we are back, Ji-Won said quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. The Accord had been formed to handle threats like the Ashrak, brutal but comprehensible enemies. The Vekor might be something far worse, an existential threat to every living being in the galaxy. We need to prepare, Doyun said, quietly, carefully, but quickly. We should accelerate weapons development, expand our defense networks, and train more officers in advanced combat tactics. Agreed, Tajin said. But we must do this without causing panic. If the general population learns that an ancient, powerful enemy is probing our defenses, it could destabilize everything we have built. Over the following weeks, the Accord leadership quietly implemented new security measures. Defense stations were reinforced. New weapon systems were developed and tested. The fleet expanded rapidly, with every member species contributing ships and personnel. Ji-Won found herself working 18-hour days, coordinating military preparations while maintaining the appearance of routine operations. She trusted her crew to keep the secret, but the strain was showing on everyone. Then, 8 months after the first signal was detected, something happened that changed everything.